Bonjour, Anin. My name is James Anderson. I'm an enrolled member of the Lac Courte Orielles Band of Ojibwe, and I've been asked to be part of this program by my friend Tony Drews, and it's an honor to speaking to you. I'll be quite honest, I wish I could see your eyes in person, yet due to the situation, that's not possible. So my promise to you is I will do my very best to share with you some ideas, some thoughts, some lessons in a way that keeps you up and awake and tuned in and ready to go. So once again, my name is James. My traditional name is Anoka-Hennepin, which means thunder sky. And you probably don't know who I am, but maybe you've heard of my dad. My dad is Famous Dave of the barbecue restaurants. So I grew up in the restaurants. I had my first job at 14 years old. I was a busboy at the original Famous Dave's, which was located in just outside of the Lac Courte Orielles Reservation, about half a mile off the reserve. And that's where I had my first job and started working there. And what's amazing is I got to watch my dad, who was just a normal Indian guy who had a dream, who had a goal. And if you'd ever been to a Famous Dave's and you had the opportunity to have the BBQ Feast, it's got ribs, chicken, fries, coleslaw, cornbread. It's fantastic. Yet that feast is served on a garbage can lid. And the reason why that's served on the garbage can lid is because back in the day, we didn't have a lot of money. And behind our house, that's where my dad would cook and work on his barbecue. And he made his first smoker, which he uses to smoke the ribs and smoke the brisket and smoke the chicken. He'd put that, made it out of a garbage can. So when he was done, the food was done, he'd pick up that food and he'd put it on the lid and he'd bring it on the house, in the house, on a garbage can lid. So that's why it's served there. So I guess I share that story as a way of saying humble beginnings. Nobody starts out a master, an expert. You've all know Famous Dave's as, well, wow, he wasn't always famous. He was just Dave at one point who had a dream, a passion. He believed in himself, and he worked hard. Today, I have the opportunity to be a speaker and a presenter, workshops. I speak at events. I travel around the United States and Canada, speaking to Native and non-Native organizations on success and personal development, training, how to be a great public speaker, how to run meetings appropriately. That's my career, and I've enjoyed it very much. Unfortunately, due to COVID, that work kind of stopped. So one week in March, I was speaking in front of 1,000 people in Las Vegas, and then right from Las Vegas, I flew to Winnipeg to speak to a Native organization up in Canada. And that same week, they basically started shutting everything down. I was one of 3 people in the airport on the way from people coming to Canada and then coming to the United States. I was one of 3 people in that area, and usually that area is packed. You can't find any place to sit with all the Canadians coming down to travel to Florida or Arizona for spring break or things like that. So that's what I used to do, and hopefully I'll have an opportunity to do it again when COVID goes away and is cured and all that. So today I have the opportunity, I work at our other barbecue, the family's other barbecue, which is Old Southern Barbecue. We have 4 locations in Rice Lake, Hudson, also in Arden Hills, and then in Minneapolis. Famous Dave has done a lot of things, had a lot of recipes. My family, my grandfather, who's Choctaw, had a lot of recipes, but you can't necessarily use all those things in Famous Dave's and change them. So we created another barbecue restaurant. So I'm an owner of the Old Southern Barbecue. The family owns it, and I have the opportunity to sell sauce into grocery stores and do lots of other marketing type things for Old Southern. And I guess that gets me to my first point, because one of the goals is that I was asked to share is just some tips to success, things that have helped me out as an Indigenous person, who has things, ideas, thoughts, tools, tips, and strategies that I've used to become successful in my walk in life. And the first thing is problems. There will always be problems. There will never be a day where it's going to be perfect. There will always be challenges, always be problems. And the big distinction to that is you can look at those problems as being, oh, horrible, bad, oh, or you can look at them as opportunities. Because the more problems you solve, the more opportunities you will have, and the more you'll become successful. So no matter what it is, life is about problems. And if you can be a problem solver, you'll find yourself being successful. In my speaking business, I had the opportunity to speak to Native youth. I'd be invited to go up to Canada, or reservation way up in the north. They're having a problem that their young people are not motivated. They're not inspired. And if they're not motivated and inspired, they're not going to school, they're not doing their homework, they're not doing the things they need to do to be successful. They're getting involved in gangs or drugs or things like that when they're not motivated and inspired. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh, I know, let's hire that James guy, bring him up here. He can talk to them and inspire and motivate them to choose a better way of life. I was a problem solver. Today, well, my business, here was my business. I was having a great year. COVID. It is against the rules to do a big event these days. I actually can't do it. It's not that I stunk or sucked or anything like that and people didn't want to hire me. No, we physically can't do it. So that's a problem. I had a week there where I was just like, oh, is this going to go away? And I was kind of down. And fortunately, my wife was like, you got to pick yourself up and you got to do something. You got to move forward. So I said, you know what? I can help the business sell our sauce. They were having problems selling sauce, and I can help with that problem. I can help solve that problem. So I decided to do something different, not sit there and focus on my problems, but look at how I can solve other people's problems. So hopefully that makes sense in your eyes right now, that the more problems you can help people solve, the more successful you're going to be. You don't want to run away from problems. You want to find solutions to help solve those problems. And that's one of the biggest things I want to share with you as young people, is because you're going to go through life and it's I don't want to say easy now because life is challenging, but you're probably thinking, oh, if I can get through middle school, I'll have less problems. If I can get through high school, I'm going to have less problems. If I can get through college or technical school or just get into work, I'm going to have less problems. No! You're going to have just more problems. They're going to be different problems. So I encourage you, change your way of thinking about it. Become a problem solver. And that will make a big difference for you your family, your future family. It's all about looking at problems, not as something that's necessarily bad, but as something that you can help solve those problems and turn them into opportunities. So that's one, problems. Solve those problems. Number two is just something that really struck me today. This was going to be part of it, but it really struck me today because this morning I lost a friend, a dear friend up in Canada. He was a client of mine. His name was Rolly, and he died to leukemia and pneumonia. And I got a message at 7 a.m. this morning that he had passed. It was unexpected, healthy as a horse, just a strong guy. And he worked for the James Smith Cree Nation, which is up in Saskatchewan. And for years, I'd been working with him and his wife. His wife is absolutely phenomenal. And he was just a great man. For the reserve, for his community, the Cree James Smith community that I worked for, he was first in charge of accounting and finances, and then he moved on to be the health director. Great guy, like I've said, and he really had integrity, and he did things the right way. I guess the distinction I want to share with you is that he was white. He was of Romanian descent. And I had never met, and in my travels, he was right up there with people who cared so much about the community he worked for. And I guess my distinction here, my second distinction here is, as an Indigenous person, sometimes I feel like we are looking for the jerks and the a-holes and the racists and all that. And sure, those people are out there, but don't let that blind you. There are a lot of amazing men and women out there who love you, want you to be successful, and they're not Indigenous people. Like I said, Rolly was of Romanian descent. And he was even challenged by people in that community to do the wrong thing. And he didn't do it. He always stuck up for his community to do it the right way. And I know maybe you've heard of people tricking our communities into doing things the wrong way or stealing or all that. Yeah, there's the stories. That wasn't Rolly, though. He believed in the community, and so did his wife. And she's worked with many, many communities out there and is a raving fan for Indigenous people. Raving fan. And that's what I want you to look for as you move forward in your life, is to not look at people out there and say, oh, they're not Indigenous and they don't understand. No, there are people out there who really, really care and want you to be successful as an Indigenous person. Don't be blinded by all the people out there looking for the people who are the jerks out there. They're there. You can find them if you want. But why spend your time on them when you can spend your time on those people who are not of our communities, who are not Indigenous, who want us to be successful? And when you do that, you will find so much opportunity. You'll see the opportunities that there are for Indigenous people. You'll see them. They're there. They're there. And we just need to open up our eyes and take advantage of those and stop looking for how we're getting screwed or how things didn't go our way and how I'm taping this and it's Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, I like to look at it, but it's an opportunity, and this happened. We cannot think like that anymore. The generational trauma must end. We must, as young people, end it and start creating a new way where we have Native privilege. It's a privilege. It's an honor to be Indigenous. I believe it's an honor, and I get opportunities that other people don't get because I'm a Native person. I'm from Lac Courte Orielles, and I'm Anishinaabe, and that's important to me, and I wear that out. I'm proud of that, and I put it out there, but I'm also not sticking it in people's face. Like, I'm Anishinaabe, here. Nobody likes that. I love licorice. Licorice is fantastic. Twizzlers, I could eat them all day, but if somebody grabs some and stuffs it in my face, sorry, I don't want it. Nobody sticks there, nobody of German descent comes and puts their German stuff in my face. I wouldn't want that. So I encourage us to be humble and proud of who we are, and don't look for the jerks. Find the people who want you to be successful and who want you to be successful in your goals and hopes and your dreams. And they're out there, and you just got to open your eyes and find them. So that's first one is problems. Life is about problems and finding solutions. The second one is be proud of your indigenous strengths, yet don't close your eyes to other people in other cultures, because you know what? Working together, us coming together, especially the ones who want you to be successful, the people on your team, that's when we can really do amazing things. So I hope that makes sense to you, that second one, is to really open up your mind to learning and being part of, being open to the help of people that may not be indigenous, but yet they want you to be successful just as much as indigenous people do. So that's one, problems. Two, keep that open mind about other people and other cultures. Number three is a good one because it's about the long game. This one, young people I find in my work don't like to hear this one because we're like now, especially in this culture. Yet we got to remember our indigenous roots. Things don't happen like this. Patience. So what I encourage you to do, students, is play the long game. So I think I'm speaking to middle schoolers, possibly some grade schoolers, high schoolers. So you're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. So one, life doesn't go like this, right? That's your dead. If you're on the hospital bed and your line goes like this, you're dead. Life's about problems and the solutions. It's the ups and downs. This is life. There's ups, there's downs, there's good times. All types of things right here that happen. The problems, the solving of the problems, the good times. So this is you when you were born. Now I have no doubt, because of advancements in technology, science, hospitals, my bet is your generation is going to live a long time. I bet most of you will live to 100 plus. That's awesome. So you're 14, 16, 18. You've only lived around this much of your life. You got all this to go. All this to go. Look at all this. Someday, you will be 42. Someday, you're going to be 57. Someday, you're going to be 75. That's all down here. Sometimes we're getting stuck in here like, oh, why does my mom want me to do this? She wants me to do the chores. Oh, I got my teacher. She's giving me homework. She's ruining my life, my style, all that kind of stuff. No. All this is to help you down here. The wonderful women and the wonderful men who are part of Anoka-Hennepin Indian education, they're helping you and helping you develop these skills, not necessarily for right now, but for here, or down over here, or here when you're lowest and you can use these tools, tips, and strategies. Or here when you're feeling good and all that, and you can help make that keep happening. That's what the skills, the tools, tips, and strategies, they bring out. Maybe they bring elders in and they share some ideas and you're like, oh, how does this apply to my life? It may not apply right now when you're 14, but let me tell you something. When you're 39, in your job, in your career, these lessons will pop up again. So listen, be active, be part of it, be part of school, because what you do here matters not necessarily for here, but for down here. You got a long way to go. Play the long game. Actively think about the long game as you are in class. Oh, this is so boring. This is so boring. Why are we doing this? Oh, change that around. Oh, long game. May not be helping me now, but it will help me later on. So, think about that. You got all this to go. All this to go. Don't just focus, what if you do this today, what does this mean down here? That's why we respect our elders. Elders have taken time and think, if I do this action here, what does it mean in 5 years? If I do this action today, what does it mean in 10 years? If I do this action now, what does it mean when I'm 80 years old? That's playing the long game, and that's the smart way to do it. That's the smart way. And even if you're a 12-year-old and you're looking, all you care about is the next video game system that you're thinking about, or the next sport, or practice, or band practice, or whatever practice you're doing outside, hanging with your friends, I want you to really open your mind to the thought and think about, what am I going to do down here? What's it going to look like? What's it going to be like? What are my goals? How can my schooling here help me down here? So, play the long game. Number one is problems, right? The downs, problems, the challenging times. There will be those. Be a solution, problem solver, solution conscious. Next one is open mind. There's lots of people who want you to be successful. And just because they may not be indigenous doesn't mean you should close down to those people or other cultures. Keep that open mind. And 3, the long game. 14, 15, 16, 17, that's all right here. You got all this to go. So keep that in mind as you move forward. So those are really my big 3 that I want to share with you. I was also asked to share with a little bit about my experience growing up as an indigenous person. I'll be honest, I was very fortunate. Even though my dad had his tough times with alcohol and drugs, cocaine, really tough times, alcoholism in my family, some of the challenges. I grew up with people who have a positive mindset. And they always talked about what a blessing it was to be an indigenous person. And that very little talk about the wrongs that were happening to them and other people in the past. It was always stay positive. And this was led by my grandfather, Jim. Excuse me. And actually, if you were to go to an old Southern restaurant, you'll see my grandmother, Iris, and my grandpa, Jim, on a plaque there, because we really named the restaurant Old Southern is after him, because he's Choctaw. He's from Idabel. His reserve is in Idabel, Oklahoma. So the southeastern corner of Oklahoma. So basically you're in southern Arkansas and northeastern Texas. That's where he was. A very hot and humid and just the south down there, and that's where he's from. And that's where the family learned barbecue and how to cook southern and just quality foods. Yet when he was young, he was orphaned by the United States government and sent to the Haskell Institute for Indians. Today, it's a great college, university. It's Lawrence, Kansas. If anybody's interested, it's a great place. But back then, it was a lot different place. It was a place where they were going to make natives white and just change their culture. And my grandmother was orphaned she was from Lac Courte Orielles. She was taken from her family and sent to Haskell Institute for Indians. And that's where they met. Now, one thing was very interesting. See, my grandfather would have talks with me, probably very similar to what we're talking about now. And as a young man, a grade schooler, even a middle schooler and high schooler, he'd sit me down and he'd talk about things. And he would always say, stay in school, learn as much as you can, be part of school, go to school. Even though I was having challenging times, tough times, one of the only Native kids in my school, he would always say, go to school, learn as much as you can. And it wasn't until later that I heard about all the bad things that had happened to him there. And to my grandma, I mean, he was taken from his family. He didn't even know where his family was anymore. And, but he never shared those because he never wanted me to think negatively about school. He knew if I was going to survive in today's in the environment, I needed to go to school. And he never talked anything bad. And it wasn't until later on that he told me that I heard the stories of some of the things that had happened to him. I thank my grandfather very much for that because he was playing the long game. He could have easily sat there and complained and talked about how horrible school is and how you don't need to go because it's just a lot of that white stuff that they're pushing you down, and look what they did to me. And I would have been like, yeah, I hate school too, Grandpa. But he didn't. He wanted me to be successful in the long game. And sure, he couldn't leave, when he was young, my age as a student, he couldn't, until he was taken away, he couldn't leave the res. He had to be across the railroad tracks onto the res before sundown, otherwise he would get in trouble. But today is different, he'd always say. Today is different, James. We can do the things that we want to do. We can go the places we want to go. Sure, bad things happen to us, but we can go. I can go to Alaska if I want to, and he went to Alaska. I can go see different countries, and he did because he was able to and wanted to and see the world. He said, don't ever forget that we are proud Indigenous people, and we can go where we want to go, do what we want to do, if we're willing to work hard at it and believe in ourselves. So I guess growing up, I always had that, even despite my toughest times, have this attitude of I can do what I want to do, go where I want to go, be the strong Indigenous person that I am, and not be ashamed and be able to put it out there. And that's what I encourage you to do, is to represent yourself. As an Indigenous people, we've got a standard. We got to uphold our amazingly strong standards that have been put forth by our elders, those who are no longer here, to do well. And no matter what we are choosing to do, let's do a great job at it. Whether it be making ribs and barbecue sauce and all that, or playing sports or an instrument, or being an artist. Maybe you're into your traditional ways and you do jewelry, or you bead. My cousins bead and they do a great job at it. Maybe you want to go ricing and be great at whatever it is you choose to do. My dad had an interesting point, and because I asked him one time, how come we're not more tradish? You know, I mean, I danced when I was young. He made jewelry, yet he's always, it's never been like this big thing. And he said, James, even back in 1491, there were all kinds. It takes all kinds to make a community. You had your business people, the traders. You had your warriors who were always looking for a fight. You had your spiritual men and women. You had the people who took care of the children. You had the people who were cooks. You think of course they had cooks. There were people who did all types of roles in our communities back then. So maybe being tradish isn't a big thing for you. That's fine. Do you and do whatever it is. Just know that you're Indigenous and do a great job at it. Or maybe you do enjoy. You want to learn the language. Great. Do a great job at it. Learn the Anishinaabe Moan, Lakota, Dakota, Whatever it is, go for it. Do the best you can. Maybe you want to get into beading or the artwork of our people or the history. Great, do that. I'm sure there were historians in our communities way back when. Or maybe you just want to be in business. Be a great native business person. There's so much opportunity. There are groups of indigenous business people all over, and we create networks and we connect traders just like we did back then. So it takes all kinds. So no matter which direction you choose to go, whether it be you want to be more a traditional person, fantastic, do that greatly. Or maybe you want to go into business, do that greatly. Your sports, do that greatly. Art, do that in an amazing way. Culture, language, do it in an amazing way. The whole idea here, and that what I was taught by my family growing up, is to do the very best you can. Be proud of where you come from, your heritage, and do what you need to do to help your community, your family survive and thrive in this world today, because we are truly free to do the things we want to do, be the people we want to be, and live the way that we want to live. So I wish you all very well, and hopefully at some point in the future I can meet you face to face. So, first one, problems. Be a person who looks at those problems as opportunities. 2, keep an open mind to other people, other cultures. They may or may not be indigenous, but be open to their help, be open to their support, and just don't focus on the jerks. There will be jerks, trust me, but don't focus your energy on them. Focus on those who want to help. And number 3, play the long game. All right? Think about your activities, your actions here, and recognize you're at the beginning. The skills you learn today can help you in the long run. And of course, whatever you choose to do, wherever you choose to go, you're indigenous, and there's a standard. And that standard is one of excellence and outstandingness, and I truly hope you recognize that you're a wonderful, beautiful, indigenous person that can do amazing things in this world. Chi-miigwech, I wish you all very well. Being native to me means opportunity and respect. It means I have a responsibility. I have to be able to respond. I have the ability to respond in any situation as a native person. When I walk into a room, I'm a native person. When I shake that person's hand, when I say hello with a smile on my face, I'm being an indigenous person. When I hug my children at night and we pray, I'm an indigenous person. When I give that tobacco to someone who's meant something to me, I'm being an indigenous person. It's a responsibility to hold myself up to a higher standard, and I'm very honored to do it. I love it. I love walking in and somebody asks, "Oh, where are you from?" And I can say, "I'm from Lac Courte Orielles," and I say that proud. And I say, "Bonjour." I say it big and bold because I am proud of where I come from, and I've got a responsibility to bring my best to that person no matter where I go. That's what being indigenous means to me. It's that awesome ability to walk into a room, walk into a place, and just be happy, ready to give my very best to that day. Miigwech.